Hello everybody and welcome to the Darkest Dungeon. Last time we left off we were in some serious trouble, so what I did was I started a brand new save game, ran through it a little bit more cautiously at the beginning, did some things that were very helpful, and so now I think I'm ready to finally be able and go through and take out this necromancer, finally. And without, I shouldn't have any problems. Because I got some good guys. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, since they are not wanting to go, I still have some other guys in reserve. Did not realize that if they are too low of a quest or whatever, that they won't go. But that's okay, because I have plenty of guys to be able to go. So, I apologize too also. During the time that I'm recording this, I've got a bit of a head cold, so I might sound a little deeper and raspier as well as nasally, and I apologize for that if that's something that may bother you or things like that. Hopefully it won't last too much longer, but for the time being, we are going to get through this. We are going to finally take out the necromancer, because that has been plaguing me for quite some time. I've been trying to rack my brain, just trying to figure out some way, shape, or form how to beat him. And now that I've got at least a decent group and a little bit better of an understanding of how to, I figured out how to, run these guys through, be able to do this kind of stuff, and take out, or be able to get through these and get these guys leveled up high enough and good enough to where they will actually be somewhat of a help going through all this.
Clarified in a single strike.
At first, I really couldn't figure out quite.
Surges as the enemy
it was a little bit of a struggle, but I eventually figured out, okay, so I need, basically at the beginning, I need to get a somewhat of a tank in the front of the line that has some type of protect that he can use, which is good. That's what this leper does.
As the fiend falls,
following behind him, at least in my pattern, following behind him, I usually have some type of, that might be good later on. Anyway, following behind the tank, who does some decent damage, but at the same time, he can take some good damage.
His efficacy unwitnessed by his own eyes.
I usually have a decent damage dealer. Usually, it's either, it's usually either the bounty hunter. I've had the bounty hunter, and he's been excellent at at his job. Wow, this is a large scouting map. Okay, well, I know where to go and where not to go now. Bounty hunter's usually been pretty good. The other one is the I cannot remember the name of that character.
A blazing star is born.
I believe it's like a berserker of some kind. Is usually who I pick for my second place. Usually next in the line, it's my ranged attack. So usually a highwayman. If I can't get a highwayman, usually I'll have a graveyard person. And then following in the rear, I usually have some type of cleric or something, some type of healer that's on constant heals. If they've got everybody at max heals, then I usually have them sitting on stunning duty. It's either usually stunning duty or if they need to, do some other damage, or if the group is getting too. I can't know what the word is, but essentially if the group is doing really well or not well enough, then I'll usually have her helping out in that aspect. But so far, this setup has usually come really well. I've usually had it's either the leper or the crusader at the front because they have a nice protect ability that usually lowers the amount of damage they take to right about 1 per hit. Then after that, it's usually the damage dealers and so on and so forth. But the other thing I've learned too is I usually try to keep as many torches as I can on me. If I don't have, or I try to make sure that I have enough torches to be able to survive. I want to make sure that my light does not go down below. If you're mousing over the number, usually it tells you where your light radiant light range is at. And I usually try to make sure that it stays above the 75% marker. We could call it. Keeping it above that 75% marker allows for a greater chance of surprising monsters when you arrive in battle, as well as it helps keep down the stress, because that has always been the major thing I have had a hard time dealing with in this game, is stress getting to the party. That is a massive problem. That's a pretty nice item. Wow, I am surprised. Usually all of them have negative effects. That's the first time I've seen one with double positives. That's a good one. Anyway, sorry, getting back to it. Yeah, I usually try to keep the light up above 75. So this way, yeah, when you get below 75, you start getting a better chance of getting better loot. But at the beginning, I'm not necessarily worried about loot as much as trying to level. Now at first, what I did was I had a core set of guys. My crusader, I had a highwayman, a cleric. I want to say, oh, this is another thing. Great. Shoot, I don't remember what the other guy was, but essentially I had enough guys to be able to. I had 4 core guys that I was trying to level up, and as the game progresses, essentially I put 2 on stress relief duty or whatnot. They would go into town, relieve stress, things like that, and then
as the light gains purchase,
I would pull them out, or I'd take the other 2 out on a raid. So having a roster of about 9 characters, I'd keep that roster full, and I would keep the 4 main guys always. If they started dying or started getting low on health during a fight or during a dungeon, I'd immediately leave the dungeon. Wouldn't want to stick around to let them die, because they are going to be the guys I want to focus on getting up to that good level to be able to start doing some damage. The rest of the guys didn't really have much of a problem with. They were basically their dungeon fodder. The other guys are there to help level those main guys up, and once they've maxed to their max stress level, got rid of them. You don't want to waste the money on de-stressing those guys, because you're not going to keep them around. They're not worth the money to keep around, and it's free to bring guys into your group and allow them to just essentially gain the other guys' experience and levels, things like that. So going through, got my 4 main characters, got them built up and everything, and eventually what ended up happening is those 4 main characters I started building up well. These other characters started doing really well as well. I had another set of 4 that were doing amazing. I mean, I was able to run them through several dungeons, and they took very little stress or anything like that.
Awarded to the brave and the foolhardy alike.
So, I was able to, thankfully, I've been trying to keep away from those, because they've been notorious for me to be booby-trapped, essentially. But the next set of 4, I was able to level them up pretty well to the point to where they would they became a backup group. So if my first set of guys were unable to fulfill their duties, things like that, I sent that second group in to run through, and they would split the experience or whatever like that. And so I was able to do a decent amount. Also through the first set of runs, I tried to make sure that any run I did had a level of 0, was short, and majority of the time I tried to make sure that I was running monster dungeons as opposed to scouting dungeons, because the monster dungeons are a little bit easier to clear as opposed to the scouting dungeons. Scouting dungeons, you have to discover 90% of the rooms, which usually means you have to leave one room open. You have to make sure that you check every room except for one room. Whereas the monster dungeons says you have to clear out 100% of the rooms of monsters. Well, there may only be 2 rooms, so I can clear those out, gain the full experience, and gain the gold that I need to be able to continue on, which was great. That's what I needed. So being able to do that, you want to make sure that if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that you go through, clear out any. You want to do the monster dungeons. You want to make sure you have plenty of torches. Usually I'd go in with a set of 8 food, a set of 8 torches, and 2 shovels. 2 shovels worked out well because the really big stress inducers were those, usually either the really big towers of bricks or the vines in some of the other cases. And so by having that shovel, it makes it to where you don't have to bring on that added stress of taking those things out, which can be a massive stress inducer on these guys. And you want to try to keep their stress down as low as possible for as long as possible. If they get up to the max stress or anything like that, that's when you've got to send them to town, and you have to pay for their treatment, all that kind of stuff like that, which becomes a massive money hog. I mean, it's usually about 1,500 gold per session for them, and to be able to do that, have to do that over and over again, it becomes a massive waste of money, essentially. And so that's where having a first set of core guys that you're only spending that money on first, and then just having the rest as fodder, works out great, because then you don't have to worry about spending a ton of money on those kind of things.
Overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
But eventually it gets a little easier as it goes, as it progresses, and then once you've kind of gotten the hang of it, and then you know the quirks of each guy. Once you learn the little quirks of each guy and their different abilities, you eventually find your groove, and you start getting into it, and you know what happens, and you know how to take guys out really fast, really easy. You also eventually learn their quirks and flaws and everything like that, which sometimes works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, a lot of it is that it can be seriously luck, is really what it ends up boiling down to some of the times. I've had it to where it was great. I was able to get through a dungeon and only really got attacked like twice. And then there's been other times where, second room, I had to leave because the whole party just was hitting miss after miss after miss, and it wasn't worth the headache of trying to keep them alive, as well as make sure I didn't spend a ton of money on them, that type of deal. But once you get into that groove, you eventually learn. You eventually figure it out, and it becomes... It gets smoother. I can't say it gets easier, it just gets smoother.
So will resistance.
Okay. I'm gonna give that to him. But yeah, it gets smoother. It doesn't necessarily get easier, just smoother, to where you don't have to worry
Even
too much
the cold stone seems bent on
about...
preventing passage.
Okay. I know I'm going to have a group in here. This is going to be a challenge. I mean, thankfully enough, this dungeon is kind of... It's got its a medium dungeon. Medium dungeons have the camping, which can be helpful in a sense because it allows you to give you guys the ability to regroup, possibly heal up if you've got some good healing abilities, things like that. Another thing I learned too, which is vitally important, is stress. The way stress is added or reduced is based off of critical hits, as well as death. Death's Door is another one. But if your guys deal critical hits on the enemy, it reduces stress of some of your party members. If the enemy does critical hits on you, they in fact induce stress on your party, which is essentially bad, you know, that type of deal. But I mean, other than traps and things like that causing stress, I mean, the best way to deal with it is just trying to get those good hits in, hopefully being able to relieve stress of the key people who are high up on stress. And another great thing is you got to make sure you have the torches. The torches are vitally key to making sure that your group is sane, you know. Okay. Oh, that's the name of that character. That takes the place of the bounty hunter is the Hellion. That's what it was. Yeah, I don't need that. Okay. Let's have him open it. Him, her, it. Can't really tell what that is. I don't need that, so we're going to take that. Alright, so we're going to camp. And when we come back, we are going to continue on.
The battle may yet be
I'm going to let him finish talking. When we get back, we're going to continue on, and we're going to finally beat this necromancer. I'm going to do it, we're going to get it, and it's going to be good, it's going to be epic, and we'll see you then. So until next time, keep playing games, and we'll see you then.